A tzaddik means you have begun the process of transformation of your evil. You have begun the process of the destruction of your evil. Your evil means your evil inclination. We said we have two forces inside of us we have to master and transform and destroy, right? Animal soul, evil inclination. I said master, control, destroy, because we need to destroy the evil and master and control the animal. When we start off, we have a godly soul, we have that animal soul, and that animal is being driven by the evil inclination. Our goal is to destroy the evil inclination. When we destroy the evil inclination, the godly soul can take mastery of the animal soul. And the animal soul, which again, its energy is klipas noiga, a godliness we can access. Its energy is now actually being used to serve God. So we are in the beginning of chapter 1 of Tanya, which is a very, very exciting place to be, the beginning of chapter 1 of Tanya. And last week, we went fundamentally through one whole dimension of how to understand the 5 terms that we're subdividing all the Jewish people under. Remember, the 5 terms, as we see them in the Gemara and the Talmud, are tzaddik v'tovlo, the tzaddik and it's good to him, tzaddik v'ralo, the tzaddik and it's bad to him, beinoni, in the middle person, rasha v'tovlo, rasha, evil, and it's good to him, rasha v'ralo, rasha, evil, and it's bad to him. So we spent most of last class understanding those 5 terms as the Talmud understands them. From the perspective of the Talmud, these 5 terms are defining or describing the physical reality of the person. You're a tzaddik, you're a very good person, v'tovlo, and you have a good life, or you're a tzaddik, v'ralo, you're a tzaddik, very good, godly person, and you have a bad life. We're talking about your physical reality. Rasha v'tovlo, you're an evil person and you have a good life. Rasha v'ralo, you're an evil person and you have a bad life. Why is the Talmud looking at these 5 terms as a description of the physical reality? Because that's how the Talmud looks. The Talmud is, as we said, nigla, what's revealed, what the eye can see. So what the eye can see is not this inner spiritual stuff. What the eye can see is your physical reality. So therefore, these terms are describing the physical reality of the person. Then the Talmud unpacks and defines this for us by saying, you want to know who's a tzaddik v'tolo? You want to know who's this righteous person that has a good life? He is tzaddik gamor. He is an absolutely perfect, great, amazing spiritual human being. And because he's so good spiritually, that's why he has a good physical life. So the term tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, rasha tovlo, rasha v'ralo, b'neinoni are describing their physical reality. The term tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor, rasha she'eno gamor, complete tzaddik, incomplete tzaddik, complete evil, incomplete evil. Those terms are describing the spiritual reality. Well, how does the Talmud know the spiritual reality from knowing their physical life? Because the physical reflects the spiritual. Everything in our physical world reflects a spiritual truth. We are told that the sweetness of fruits is a reflection of their spiritual source in kindness in the world of Atzilus, in the world of being. We have pretty universally a 7-day week, which is sort of an odd number, but it's a reflection of the spiritual reality of God's week, of God creating the world in 7 days. We have kings or leaders as God is the ultimate king. So our physical reality is a reflection and created by the spiritual reality. So the Talmud is saying, the term is describing what my eye can see. So tzaddik v'tovlo is a tzaddik and it's good to him. What my eye can see has a good life. Why would a person have a good life? I'm defining this by saying he is a tzaddik gamor. He's completely righteous and the spiritual creates a physical. So his high spiritual stature creates all the good in his physical life. Now, we described this at length last week with many, many details. I'm just overviewing and reminding everyone that was the Talmud's understanding of these 5 terms. What we were just up to at the very end of last week was looking at the other side, which is the side in the Tanya we quote the Raya Mehemna, which means faithful shepherd, which is one of the sections of the Zohar. The Zohar is the most fundamental work of the inner dimension of Torah. So Talmud reflects the revealed Torah, what we call Nigla, and Zohar, Kabbalah, the esoteric dimension, reflects what we call the Pnimius HaTorah, the inner dimension of Torah, which might be referred to as the esoteric, or might be referred to as the hidden dimension of Torah. One could say Talmud is like the body of Torah, and Zohar, or the inner dimension, is like the soul of Torah. And Chassidus, of course, is on the same side as the Zohar, as Kabbalah, as Pnimis HaTorah, as the Tanya. So ultimately, the Tanya is going to go along the lines of the definition we understand based on this one snippet. Zohar defined one of the five. From that one definition, we're going to extrapolate to all five to understand all five of these terms in the light of Zohar, in the light of the soul of Torah, the inner dimension of Torah, the esoteric dimension of Torah, Kabbalah, Chassidus, Tanya. Now, even before I start, let me say that it will seem like two different worlds. How we describe these five levels on the side of the revealed aspect doesn't seem to at all match how we're going to describe them on the inner dimension, soul level, Tanya level. And at this point, since we're in chapter 1, it just looks like a disagreement, a conflict. If you look at the body, if you look at the soul, you got two different worlds. But obviously the body and the soul can't be two different worlds, like a body and soul have to work together. So much later in Tanya, in chapter 13, we go back to understand that actually what the Talmud is saying is in sync with the inner dimension. In other words, it's not a conflict. As we're going to discuss it, we will see the Rasha V'Toivlo, the one who is imperfectly evil, because he's evil and good, on the side of the inner dimension of Torah, potentially could be spiritually far greater than the Tzaddik V'Toivlo on the side of the Talmud. The highest level on the side of the Talmud, the Tzaddik V'Tovlo, the Tzaddik, and it's good to him, the perfect Tzaddik, spiritually could be lower than the imperfect evil person on the side of the soul of Torah. So obviously, well, they just don't agree. Well, they do. But it'll take us 13 chapters for us to understand that. So we're going to put in the back of our brains that really this is not a conflict. Really, of course, there's a synergy. And what the Talmud is saying in its language is actually decoded what the Zohar, what the Tanya is saying in its language. But we need some knowledge to understand that. So we're not going to explain it now. We're just putting it like tucked away somewhere in our brain. So now let's look at the side of the Talmud, the inner dimension of Torah. So we have one definition. The Zohar, as I said, the Raya Mehemna, the section called Faithful Shepherd, said by Moses, by Moshe, the faithful shepherd of the Jewish people. He defines the term Tzaddik Viralo. A Tzaddik Viralo. What is a Tzaddik Viralo? The Zohar says, Shahara Shabo Kafuf Latov, that his evil is subservient to his good. Which means, the Zohar is saying, in this term tzaddik v'ra we have two dimensions. Well, first of all, he's a tzaddik, so we're putting that on the side. V'ra loi. And there is evil. That's what we gain from the word v'ra, and evil. And there is evil. And loi, it's his. It's his, meaning he's the owner of it. He's the master of it. So what does this mean? You have evil and you're the master of it. So therefore, the Zohar explains, what does it mean you have evil and you're the master of it? That he does have evil, but it's totally subordinate. It's totally controlled by his godly, by his good. So there's evil there, but it doesn't bother him at all. That is the one term the Zohar defines. But from that one term, we can extrapolate to all five. Just as on the side of the Talmud, we had a definition for two terms, and from those two terms, we extrapolated to all five. Now we got one, but we're good. So what does this mean? Basically, the term tzaddik, which could have many different definitions, a good person, a godly person, a righteous person, right? On the side of Talmud, we view the term Talmud, the term tzaddik, as someone who had a majority of good deeds. Remember the tzaddik v'tovlo, he has such a good physical life, because he's a tzaddik amor, he's so great and perfect in his spiritual reality, we said, well, he has a high majority good deed. And the tzaddik viralo, the tzaddik, good person, viralo, bad life, well, he's tzaddik she'eno gamor. He's imperfect in his spiritual reality, but he's a tzaddik. True, he's a tzaddik, so he must have a majority of good deeds. But if you have 60% good, you could also have 40% bad. If you have 70% good, you could also have 30% bad. So he's a tzaddik. The majority is tipping on the side of the good, but there's bad. And because there's bad, that's what's creating the bad in his physical reality. But the tzaddik gamor, oh, he's got so much good there that how does this play out in his life? Oh, he's got a very good spiritual life. So therefore, from the side of the Talmud, the tzaddik meant someone who has more good than bad. Just as the Rasha, the evil person, means someone on the side of the Talmud who has more bad than good. And the Beinoni, which means in the middle, is someone who is in the middle. He's like sort of the scale is equally balanced. Not really more good like the tzaddik, not really more bad like the Rasha. He's in the middle. He's a Beinoni. So from the perspective of the Talmud, you could have 70% good deeds and be the imperfect tzaddik viralo, the tzaddik who has a bad life because he's got 30% bad there, but a lot of good. From the perspective of the Talmud, and I'm of course roughly saying these numbers, but you could be 85% good, 15% bad. Well, you would be at tzaddik v'tovlo. That's a pretty high majority good. And that's why 85% good, there's a lot of good reflecting in all the good in your life. I mean, you also have, not perfect, you're human. You could have 15% bad, but you got 85% good. That's pretty good. Tzaddik v'tovlo. You have a good physical life because you've got so much spiritual good creating that good physical life. That's all from the perspective of the Talmud. So the Talmud gives a lot of leeway for our clay feet, our humanity, our mess ups. No one's really asking for perfection here because, why would we ask for perfection? But that's not so on the side of the Zohar, on the side of Kabbalah, on the side of Pnimiyus HaTorah, the inner dimension, Chassidus, Tanya. From that perspective, from the soul of Torah perspective, the tzaddik v'tovlo and the tzaddik v'ralo and the Beinoni are all absolutely perfect. Perfect in everything they do, perfect in everything they think and consciously feel, perfectly, of course, in everything they say. On all dimensions of self, action, speech, emotion, thought, conscious thought and conscious emotion, completely given over to God. So even the Beinoni, again, the Beinoni on the side of the Talmud could be sinning 50% of the time. The Beinoni on the side of Kabbalah and Chassidus doesn't even sin once. So then you could, of course, say, well, if the tzaddik v'tovlo and the tzaddik v'ralo and the Beinoni are absolutely perfect in everything they do, say, consciously feel, and consciously think, why do we have three categories here? Should be one category. So this goes into really what are the terms here. Tzaddik viralo, we said, means he has evil, but it's his. But he's the master over it. So that is really this critical component in making someone a tzaddik viralo, or, of course, we know the definition, the inner dimension of Torah is completely in sync with the Talmud. So the Talmud's definitions for these terms, the inner dimension, also follows, right? The Talmud defined tzaddik v'tovlo, a tzaddik, and it's good for him, as a tzaddik gamor, complete tzaddik. The Talmud defined tzaddik viralo, a tzaddik, and it's bad for him, as tzaddik she'eno gamor, incomplete tzaddik. So in the side of the Talmud, again, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik viralo, good physical life, bad physical life, tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor, really high majority good deeds, or majority good deeds. On the side of the inner dimension, we're following these same terms, but we're looking at them very differently. Tzaddik she'eno gamor, the incomplete tzaddik, who is the tzaddik viralo, the tzaddik, and there's bad to him, means incomplete or complete are relating to, again, on the side of the Talmud, that related to your spiritual reality. But here, these 5 definitions are describing your inner spiritual reality. Again, I hope this is clear because, of course, there's a lot going on here. So I'm trying to repeat myself a bit to make sure this is really, really clear. So on the side of the Talmud, the 5 terms were describing the physical reality and the definitions were describing the spiritual reality. From the physical reality, I extrapolate backwards to the source of the physical reality, which is a spiritual reality. So, tzaddik v'tovlo, physically good life. Tzaddik gamor, spiritually good life. The spiritually good life creates a physically good life on the side of the Talmud. On the side of the inner dimension of Torah, the soul of Torah, these 5 terms, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik viralo, are describing the inner spiritual reality of the person. So then what are the terms tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor doing if we're already describing the spiritual reality by the term tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik viralo? Well, the tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor, Rasha gamor, Rasha she'eno gamor, incompletely evil, incompletely tzaddik, are describing the person's relationship to God, his love of God. The terms tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, Rosh tovlo, Rosh v'ralo, and Benoni are describing the person's relationship to evil. Meaning, on the side of the Talmud, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, physical reality. Tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor, spiritual reality. Yeah, tzaddik and good for you, physical reality. Incomplete or complete tzaddik, spiritual reality. So the Talmud had the terms that were the physical reality, and their definition of the terms of spiritual reality. On the side of the Zohar, it's all the spiritual reality. Both tzaddik v'tovlo and tzaddik gamor. Tzaddik and it's good for you, complete tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik she'eno gamor. Tzaddik and it's bad for you, incomplete tzaddik. They're both talking about the spiritual reality. So what's the difference? So the terms tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo are describing how this person is relating to evil, the evil inside of a self. And the term tzaddik v'tovlo, the term tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor, is how this person is relating to God. So we're starting with tzaddik v'ralo, right? That was the one definition we got. So let me explain again, unpack there, and then we'll go up and down. But we already know tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, and Benoni are completely perfect. But obviously there's a difference because we have 3 levels, not 1. So we said tzaddik v'ralo he's a tzaddik, he's an absolutely godly person, completely person and perfect in thought, in speech, in action, completely perfect. He has evil and he masters it. So that term is relating to his relationship with evil. What was the definition? Tzaddik she'eno gamor, an imperfect tzaddik. Well, what does imperfect tzaddik mean here? Well, we said these terms are relating to your love of God. Now, he's a tzaddik. So, if we only were on this level, please. But if we're going to analyze him with a magnifying glass and the microscope, he is imperfect in his love of God. He has a very, very, very high love of God, but not 1,000,000%, maybe like 97, very, very passionate love of God, but not absolute. Why does that make a difference? Why am I care? Why am I judging this person? Well, I'm not really judging him, but why am I labeling? Why do we need to know this? Why is the person important to know it himself? Because, and this is the critical factor here, as per your love of God is your hatred of evil. As per your hatred of evil is your destruction of it. I'll say the sentence again. It's a critical sentence. Your love of God creates your hatred of evil. Your hatred of evil creates your destruction of evil. So the tzaddik she'eno gamor, the incomplete tzaddik, we know he's a tzaddik. He's perfect in thought, conscious emotion, speech, deed, but he's imperfect. He loves God, but there's some lacks within his incredible love, which means he hates evil, but there's some lacks within his hatred of evil. And since he hates evil, he's destroying the evil inside of him. Since there's some lacks, he cannot completely obliterate it. It's almost like, if you want to put it in very human terms, I'm going to compare now the 3 levels, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, and Benoni, in terms of their relationship to evil. The highest level, the tzaddik v'tovlo, who is perfect in his love of God, absolute, intense, complete, his whole being is love of God, well, then his whole being is hatred of evil. And therefore, he completely eradicates it. So if this tzaddik v'tovlo was looking at something evil, whatever that evil thing is, I don't mean evil like Saddam Hussein or Hamas. I mean, something in this world that God forbids. When he's looking at that, he's disgusted by it. He's repelled by it. He abhors it. He's like, oh my gosh, that's nauseous. This item is a blockage of God's light in this world. This item is a barrier between us and God. Ugh, sick, horrible, repulsive. That is how the tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik gamor relates to evil. He absolutely loves God. Therefore, he absolutely hates evil. And that's why it can't exist inside of him, because he's not feeding it at all, 1 iota. The next level down, of course, there are myriads of sub-levels in all of these. We have 5 categories for all of the Jewish people, but in the broad strokes. The next category, the tzaddik v'ralo, he completely loves God, but maybe there's a little space of else. And therefore he absolutely hates evil, but there's also that little space of else, which is why he destroys it, but incompletely. Which means, on a practical note, we could sort of extrapolate and say, if he was looking at the same thing the complete tzaddik looks at and is just like nauseated by and hates and abhors and just sees it as a barrier to God's light in this world, this next level, the tzaddik viralo, the tzaddik who has evil, but he's controlling it, he could look at it and say, I have no desire for it whatsoever. Zero. But I know that some people do. I could see that some people do. Yeah, it doesn't tempt me at all. I got no interest in it. But I know that people are interested in it. I know it's tempting to people. I could see how, depending on where he's holding on the ladder, he might even say, I could see how it could be tempting to people, though it doesn't tempt me at all. So he's not at all tempted. He doesn't at all want it, but it's not like, I'm nauseated by it. I just have an absolute repulsion. Go down.
Could it be because the ego is starting to get involved?
Absolutely.
Ego?
Absolutely. The ego is the I, and the I is the source of the evil. So our ultimate goal, which we work on in our whole lifetime, however many lifetimes we have, and the souls work on above, is transcending the I, nullifying the I, becoming subsumed in God's reality.
And what about greed?
Greed? None of these people have greed. None of these people have greed. All of these people, again, the tzaddik v'tovlo, the tzaddik v'ralo, and the Benoni are absolutely perfect. They never sin. The Benoni never sins. So there's no room for greed, because that would be a sin. So none of them sin. Not just they don't sin in their actions, not just they don't sin in their speech. They don't sin in their conscious emotions. They don't sin in their conscious thoughts. So there's no room for anything negative. That's why when Shalom said ego, I said the I. Again, so it's not an ego evil manifestation. None of them can have any manifestation of evil. But there could be an I, a sense of self. You can say, what's the problem? That just means we're human. True, but God wants us to transcend that. God wants us and him to be absolutely one, and the I is the barrier. So there could be that I. Again, very subtle, very subtle. Again, the tzaddik v'tovlo, repelled by the evil, because the evil, again, evil, I don't mean by evil like Hamas, which, yeah, we all are repelled by that. I mean, evil meaning God said no. God said, no, you cannot gossip. Or God said, no, you can't have a mixture of milk and meat. I mean, if we would look at a mixture of milk and meat, I don't think any of us will be like repelled. Well, who knows? But, it's not like we'd be like, we just wouldn't drink it or eat it or we throw it out. But the ultimate tzaddik, he literally sees this as exactly what it is, a barrier on God's light. And he's repelled by it. The next level tzaddik, the imperfect tzaddik, also very much loves God and very much hates evil and very much is destroying the evil inside of himself, but he's not complete. So therefore, there's space. There's space to say, I could see how someone could be attracted to this. I could see how someone would want it. I mean, I don't, but I could see how someone would. Now, if we go down a huge notch to the Benoni, who also is completely perfect and never sins, not in what he does and not in what he says and not in his conscious feelings and not in his conscious thoughts, but he's attracted. Again, there are many levels of Benoni. I'm just going to like the most common level. There's higher and higher and higher levels within Benoni as well. But go to the most common Benoni, like the bottom of the pyramid of Benonim, he's really attracted. But he doesn't let himself ever give in to that attraction. So the Benoni would be attracted, but control himself. The tzaddik v'ralo would not be attracted, but he sees how one could be attracted. And the complete tzaddik is just repelled by it because it's a barrier to God. So they are very different, but at the same time, they have a very strong commonality of having absolute control, absolute dedication to God, absolute commitment to God. And because of that, it never, ever moves even to the conscious thought or conscious emotion. So we started with the imperfect tzaddik, where we said he's imperfect tzaddik. That means his love of God is imperfect. Love of God creates hatred of evil. So therefore, he is imperfect in his hatred of evil, which is why he's a tzaddik viralo. He has evil, but he's the master over it. Why does he have evil? Because he's imperfect in his hatred of evil. And evil is destroyed by our hatred of it. The more we hate evil, the more we destroy it. It's interesting because, 21st century Americans, a lot of us don't feel comfortable with the idea of like hating evil. I mean, maybe now we do a bit more post October 7th. But a lot of us are like, it doesn't seem like the right, correct words to use. This is a very strong emotion, deliberately so. We destroy the evil by our hatred of it. Why do we need the hatred to destroy it? Because if we don't have that hatred, there's like almost a constant flow of our life and energy that's fueling the evil inside of us. When we're talking about destroying evil, we don't mean out there in the world. We mean inside self. Every Jew has a godly soul, completely godly, an animal soul, as we discussed last week, of klipas noiga, but barriers I can get past to access the God in it, and an evil inclination of klipas tmeos, an evil inclination where I can't even ever access that godly energy. It is godly energy. The evil inclination is an angel, but I can never access that godly energy. That godly energy is completely blocked. That is, as we discussed last week, klipas tmeos. So inside every Jew, you've got the godly soul. That's you. That's the I of the Jew. You've got an animal soul, which has evil and godliness, and I can access the godliness if I transcend this evil. And then I have the evil inclination that's just evil. There's nothing I can do to use it for good. So when I'm talking about destroying evil, we're talking about inside, destroying the evil of self, destroying the evil inclination, and overcoming the evil of the animal soul. If we're not consciously hating the evil, we are feeding the evil. Our belief in something feeds it. Our belief in something allows it to exist. I don't know if you know the concept, but if you would be, say, inside a lecture hall and someone is saying something against God in the lecture, you have an obligation to stand up and leave. That is called making a mecha, a protest. Now, maybe really you should actually say something before you leave, but there are levels. But at the very least, the minimal requirement is to walk out of that room. Why? I'm not saying, I agree. I'm just sitting here quietly. I'm polite. No, we're not polite to something wrong. If you are sitting quietly in a room, you are giving your energy to this issue. If as you're hearing the speaker, you're like, oh, wow, this is wrong stuff. No, I don't agree with this. This is bad. This is anti-God stuff. If you still sit in that room, you are giving your energy to that. And therefore, at the least minimal requirement, stand up and walk out. Don't energize it. I think that's obviously very relevant today with a lot of stuff going on in our world, that our sages say, shtika kehoda'a. When you're quiet, it's acquiescence. You don't want to make waves. We don't want to make waves. We want to be nice. We want to be accepted and acceptable and liked and all those wonderful terms. So we'll just be nice and quiet. Obviously, we don't agree with what they're saying, but we're not going to say anything. Shtika kehoda'a. When you're quiet, you're acquiescing. When you're acquiescing, you're energizing. So therefore, we feed the evil inside of us. Our animal soul and our evil inclination are fed from us, are fed from our godly soul's energy. Because as long as we allow it to be passively, I mean, none of us consciously want it, but passively, we're feeding that evil. So we need a very conscious force of, I don't want you to exist. I do not allow you to exist inside of me. That's hatred, absolute despising, removing, ripping away from it any vitality, and then it starts withering. So this is a critical difference between the Benoni, the Tzaddik V'Tovlo, the Tzaddik V'Ralo. The Tzaddik V'Ralo, we said on the side of the Talmud, Tzaddik means you have a majority of good. The imperfect Tzaddik has a majority of good, and the perfect Tzaddik has a high majority of good. On the side of the inner dimension, the soul of Torah, a tzaddik means you have begun the process of transformation of your evil. We call Kabbalistically in the language of Hasidus, ishap, transformation. You have begun the process of the destruction of your evil. Your evil means your evil inclination. We said we have two forces inside of us we have to master and transform and destroy, right? Animal soul, evil inclination. I said master, control, destroy, because we need to destroy the evil and master and control the animal. When we start off, we have a godly soul, we have that animal soul, and that animal is being driven by the evil inclination. Our goal is to destroy the evil inclination. When we destroy the evil inclination, the godly soul can take mastery of the animal soul. And the animal soul, which again, its energy is klipas noiga, a godliness we can access. Its energy is now actually being used to serve God. So a tzaddik on the side of Kabbalah and Tanya and Hasidus, the inner dimension of Torah, is one who has begun the process of destruction of this inner evil called the evil inclination. The imperfect tzaddik imperfectly loves God, therefore imperfectly hates evil, therefore imperfectly destroys it. He is beginning the process. It is partially destroyed, but it's still there. The complete tzaddik completely loves God, completely hates evil, completely destroys evil, and therefore tzaddik v'toivlo. He's a tzaddik, and all we can say is he has good inside of him. There is no bad to talk about, because the bad is completely eradicated. But the term tzaddik means you're doing amazing work. Amazing work. Only the work of a tzaddik. You have begun the destruction of that evil is hapcha. And therefore, tzaddik vira loy. You have evil because you don't completely hate it, so it's still around. But loy. You have enough begun the process of destruction of the evil inclination that you're the complete master here. There's only one master, and it's the godliness. And that's why the evil doesn't bother you at all. It doesn't have a voice. Because once you begin destroying the evil inclination, everything goes mum. Everything goes silent. Nothing is challenging you. Nothing is pushing you. Nothing is distracting you. The evil is completely gagged and quiet. It cannot open its mouth at all. Which is why I said the Benoni, who has not begun this process at all, because he's not a tzaddik, he's got a very healthy evil inclination that's talking a lot and pulling him and tempting him and trying to get him to sin. He's always fighting it. But the tzaddik, even the imperfect tzaddik, completely quiet. You've begun the process of destruction of the evil. It's not bothering you at all. Any questions on any of this?
I have just one. I'm not sure if this relates, but with the tzaddiks, with just the tzaddiks, do they have the 10 sfirot on them?
We all do. It's all part of our soul. Every Jew in our soul is mirroring God's energy. So the 10 sfirot are by God. God has 10 sfirot. Every godly soul of every single Jew in the world has 10, by a Jew we call it bechinot, aspects. So the 10 sfirot are mirrored in the 10 bechinot, the 10 aspects within the soul of every single Jew.
Oh, okay. Not just tzaddiks.
Not just the tzaddik, every single Jew.
Okay.
Because all of us are in the image of God. And therefore our soul is mirroring God's energies. Any other questions? Anyone?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I'm thinking maybe each one of us, even though, we can tap into the space of a Benoni, like for a split second or for a moment, like if we are doing something good or giving tzedakah. I mean, when does it make any sense?
Yes, 100%. That's a very critical point Rachel is saying. I didn't really completely go through everything because I spoke so much. I wanted to give time for people to, if you have a question anyway, you have to wait like for another 15 minutes on it. But yes, what Rachel is saying is the bottom line. Bottom line is, Tanya is Sefer Shel Beinonim. It's the work for every single Jew to access his Benoni potential. Which doesn't mean like what we think is the side of the Talmud, that the Benoni is 50% of the times good and 50% of the times bad. We don't need the work of Tanya to help us ascend to that. It means how Tanya defines a Benoni. Someone absolutely perfect in everything he does, everything he says, everything he consciously feels, everything he consciously thinks. So Rachel is correct. Our aspiration is to come closer and closer to God. And as we do so, we find that Benoni potential inside of ourselves. For how long? For however long as we're in that space. 50 seconds, a month, a year, a day, an hour. Meaning, what does God look at us like? I mean, if the Benoni is even perfect in everything he does, thinks consciously, says, consciously feels, that means we're all evil? Rishaim? I don't believe so at all. We're all walking on our ladder. It's very important. Chassidus speaks a lot about this idea of God looks at our movement. God looks at our growth. You're higher today than you were this morning. You've ascended. You've come closer to God. That's what he asks. So in that process of daily ascension and growth, and then weekly, and then monthly, and then annually, we do have our, like Rachel said, our Benoni moments. And again, a moment for each person, a moment could be literally 5 seconds, or literally 5 hours, or literally 5 days, or 5 years. What does that mean? What does a Benoni moment feel like? It's that
Is that
space
like
and time when you're absolutely committed to God. That's what a Benoni is. Meaning the Benoni is completely tempted. He is in no way destroyed his evil whatsoever. It is alive and healthy and rambunctious and loud and gnawing at him. We can relate to all this, right? Oh, we're almost there, because all of that we can relate to. So what's the difference between the Benoni and me? Absolute commitment to God, which is creating the absolute self-control. He wants it all. Remember, the perfect tzaddik is repelled, and the imperfect tzaddik is sort of like objectively looking at it and saying, I see how someone could be tempted, though of course I'm not at all. The Benoni just wants it, absolutely, but never gives in because of his commitment to God. He has such love of God, that he has such dedication to God, that he will not sin, no matter how much he wants to. And we all experience this, maybe for a minute. Maybe it's a spiritual height, it's Yom Kippur, it's Ne'ilah, it's Simchas Torah, it's Shabbos, it's the 15th of Av, it's whatever's going on in your life, and you could be in that space of all you want is God. God is your reality. That's all that's real. That's all that exists. That's the only thing in your world is God. Oh, and then crash, bang, real life happens. Okay. But for those moments, minutes, hours, seconds, where all you want is God, and that's all you believe in and all you think of everything in this world, Hakol Hevel Havolim, it's all nothingness. The only thing is real is God. That's you as a Benoni. That might even be you as a tzaddik. The Rebbe has a very foundational Hasidic discourse, a maimar, and death will be swallowed up forever, Bila Hamaves LaNetzach, where he actually explains that every single Jew, this sounds wild, but I mean, I'm relying on the Rebbe. He's writing this. Every single Jew at some point in his life has a tzaddik moment. How long that tzaddik moment is, no clue. Everyone's different, obviously. Not even a Benoni moment, a tzaddik moment. And the Rebbe explains that every Jew has to have it because through this tzaddik moment, that is how we have the eternal life of Olam Haba by Mashiach. So every Jew is coming back. Every Jew has a resurrection. Every Jew is going to live forever by Mashiach. So every Jew in their lifetime in this world reality had a moment where his relationship with Hashem was at tzaddik, where he only feels his love of God and his absolute hatred of evil. A very intense moment, and then it passes, and you're like, woo, whatever, you keep moving. But that moment was very significant. That moment is creating your eternal life of Mashiach. How often we've had that moment, everyone's different. How often do we experience the Benoni moments? Probably more than the tzaddik moments. But again, for some of us, very frequently. For some of us, very rarely. But I am confident that every one of us has those moments where all that's real is God, where all you want is God, where your whole commitment is to God. Whatever's going on in this world, it's irrelevant. You want God. That's all that matters. You're a Benoni. And then you fell. Okay. And you keep moving. So we're constantly striving and attaining, and then it slips out of our hands. But then we keep working on ourselves to have that place of such transcendence of self. God and I are one. That's where it's at. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments?
I really, I'm thinking to put Post-its up in my house. Have a Benoni day, have a Benoni moment.
That's a great idea.
It really resonates, and people wouldn't get it. They might crash into you if we did a bumper sticker.
It's a great idea because it's a reminder. You just have to do them different neon colors and shift them up. So, because after a while we stop saying them.
It really resonate. It just struck me and resonated. The way Rachel said, everyone has a Benoni moment. Because I don't necessarily always think that way, but it's a great reminder.
It is, and we do, and that's what Tanya's about. Tanya is us accessing ourselves as Beinonim. As we climb up that ladder, it's a long climb, yes, but we have those gifts, those sparks.
Right, and one of the most important things from learning is to take something practical, not just in the head, but that you can take out of it and strive for and do.
Absolutely, and it's great because it's just like a Like you're saying, it's a constant reminder. This is who I truly am. That's what Tanya wants. This is what I was explaining on the first day we did chapter 1. The Alter Rebbe wants you to revisit your definition of self. The Alter Rebbe wants you to look at yourself and see how beautiful you are. The Alter Rebbe wants you to look at yourself and see how you are a piece of God. Because once we know who we are, then we could breathe. Then we could be ourselves. Then we could live. But when we define ourselves by the lacks and the problems and the issues and limitations, or however the world defines us, whatever the world sees as who we are, like we lost it. We don't even have a hope to become ourselves because we don't even understand who ourselves are. So when you're looking at yourself and saying, I am that potential Beinoni, I'm that potential tzaddik. The Rebbe said in Emor of 1991, every Jew today could be a tzaddik gomer b'lashon Tanya. The Rebbe wants us to look at ourselves that way. The Rebbe spoke once how every Jew has the potential of being a Rebbe. It's crazy. The Rebbe said it. That's how the Rebbe wants us to look at ourselves, how huge we are, how beautiful we are, how a piece of God we are. Because then when we understand who we are, we can become who we are. But when we don't, and we just think of ourselves in terms of the negative and what we're not, and what all the negatives, we bash ourselves or the world bashes us, or a great combination of both, we're drowning. We're drowning in that negativity. We can never move to who we really are. So in the last minutes, I just want to make this very clear, because I didn't even get to the side of the evil, but at least the godly side, meaning I focused on the three terms, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, and beinoni on the side of the inner dimension. I just want to make it again very, very, very clear, because obviously I was jumping all over the place, so it wasn't perfectly clear. So these three, all three of them, again, these three terms, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, beinoni, are talking about your spiritual reality in terms of your relationship to evil, tzaddik gomer, tzaddik she'eino gomer, complete tzaddik, incomplete tzaddik, your spiritual reality in terms of relationship with God. We'll go from the top down. The tzaddik v'tovlo is a tzaddik gomer. Tzaddik gomer, complete tzaddik, tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik, and it's good to him. Tzaddik gomer, he's complete in his love of God, absolutely 1,000,000% love of God, which we said therefore means absolutely 1,000,000% hatred of evil, 1,000,000% despising evil, which therefore he's removing his life from it. He is not vivifying it as we do, and therefore it ceases to exist. He has done complete, the Kabbalistic term again is ishapcha, complete transformation. His evil is gone. Well, what's ishapcha? Ishapcha means transformation, and I just said the evil is gone. This hapcha is on the animal. Godly soul, animal soul, evil inclination. Godly soul, kedusha, godliness. Animal soul, klipas noiga, that level where there's a barrier, but you can access the God behind the barrier. His evil inclination, klipas tmeos. Of course, there's God there, but we cannot access it at all. A wall, a stone wall, cannot access that godliness. The tzaddik gomer, complete in his love of God, has such love of God, such hatred of evil, that he completely despises it, removes its life, and it ceases to exist. He destroyed his evil inclination. Because that's what we need to do. We can't access it. We can't utilize it. It's klipas tmeos. We just destroy it. He destroyed it by his hatred of it. He refuses to give it any life. Like if you could think of your own fears that you vivify, your own weaknesses that you vivify. He's not vivifying any of this. He hates it. He is removing any vitality from it. It does not exist. The moment he destroys his evil, his animal soul now has a new master. The animal soul is an animal. The evil inclination is a master over it. It's the rider of that animal. Once the evil inclination is gone, there's a new master, the godly soul. So there's the ishapcha, there's the transformation, that the godly soul is now the master, the rider, the director of the animal. How would the tzaddik experience this? He would be flying in his relationship to God. Because the animal soul is an animal. An animal soul has a lot of power. Our sages say, Rav Tvuos b'koach shor, an ox has a lot of productivity. So when the godly soul has completely destroyed the evil inclination, it is gone. The animal soul is like stripped naked. It has no clothing. It has no evil clothing. Its rider is gone. Well, quickly now, at the second, the godly soul is now the rider. The godly soul is now in clothing, so to speak, the animal. And therefore, the strength of the animal is joined with the strength of the godly to serve God. And the godly soul is much more powerful than it was before, because the animal is very strong. So in the tzaddik v'gomer, tzaddik v'tovlo, he is so intensely energized in his love for God and his service of God because it's got all the energy of the animal soul serving with him. The level down, incomplete tzaddik, and there's evil, and it's his, tzaddik v'ralo, loves God tremendously, but incomplete, there's some space for else. Hates evil tremendously, but incomplete, some space for else, and therefore has begun the process of destroying the evil inclination, but hasn't finished it. Because to finish it, you got to hate completely. You got to love completely, to hate completely, to destroy completely. But again, he's a tzaddik. A tzaddik means he's in the process. What does he see practically that he's in the process? That the evil doesn't bother him at all. What about all this animal soul, great extra energy flying, racing to God? Nope, he doesn't have it one drop. As long as the evil inclination is around, even the tiniest shred of the evil inclination still is there, that's the boss. That's the master over the animal soul. The godly soul is getting no benefit from that animal soul. It is completely directed by the inclination. Now, it can't challenge him. It can't tempt him. It can't sway him. Because once he begins the process of destroying the evil inclination, like it's too weak to do anything but exist. But as long as that evil exists, he can't access the animal at all. As I'm saying this, I think there's a lot of modern day parallel images in what's going on in Israel with these ideas, if we think about it for a second. So the tzaddik, she'eino gomer, the incomplete tzaddik, he's a tzaddik. He's in the process of destroying his evil inclination, but he's incomplete. It's still there. Since it's still there, his animal soul isn't helping him at all serve God. He has no mastery of it whatsoever. But since he's begun the process of destroying the evil, it doesn't bother him at all. He has no temptations, no struggles. He could actually make the mistake and think it's gone because it so doesn't bother him. Third level there is the Benoni. The Benoni is not a tzaddik. He has not destroyed any drop of his evil inclination, which is why his evil inclination bothers him a lot. But he is completely committed, given over to God, absolute dedication, enough love and fear that he will in no way want to separate himself from God. And with God's help, he needs perhaps a lot of help from God, but God's there helping him because he's trying. He never gives in, but he is constantly tempted. So does he have an evil inclination? Yeah, it's complete and very active and very vocal. Is his animal soul helping him at all? Not one drop. It's completely under the control of the evil inclination and trying to tempt him. But he keeps overcoming with his commitment, his love, his fear, and the help of God.